Right lads, we're only 5 pay-per-views away from UFC 300, so I thought I'd do a little card builder, and as you can see I've written out a couple of things I wanted to try and stick by in this video. What I've tried to do is I've tried to keep it realistic while also having some really fun matchups. Only one fight on this card I think is unlikely to happen, the rest I think definitely could. Every fight on the main card is of a level it could at least co-main a pay-per-view, and the prelims a fight night card. And on top of all that, I really think we should focus on a good press conference. It's the kind of event where they could do like a massive one with all the fighters on one stage pretty much. I kind of wanted storylines here, so let's get straight into it. Every card needs a heavyweight fight, and I think the most exciting one you can make on a prelim for 300 is Rosenstruik against Tuivasa. They're in similar positions, they're both coming off losses. It's a 50-50, it's whoever lands first. I love the fight, I think it'd be great on this card. I think this one just makes perfect sense. I mean, Jim Miller on UFC 100, on UFC 200. Has to be on UFC 300, right? I mean, it just makes sense. And Paul Felder, of course, is coming off a long old layoff. He's in the testing pool now. He's eligible to fight in April. Originally, I was thinking about maybe having them against different opponents, but I just thought, with the long layoff, you can't give Felder a ranked opponent, and Miller's still dangerous, so makes all the sense in the world to me. In my opinion, this would be an underdog fight of the night pick. I mean, Bo Nickel and Ikram Aliskerov have both had very similar starts in the UFC. They've just ran through their opponents. I think the only problem with this fight is I think Dana may try and protect him from Ikram for now, but if it happens, it'll be amazing. And also the great thing about having Bo here is in the past he's been used on main cards to try and sell the UFC pay-per-views to that kind of wrestling audience. UFC 300 will not need help with that. If anything, having him on the prelims free to air would bring those people in. Makes all the sense in the world. Great fight. Let's see it. This was probably one of the first fighters that actually came into my head. Now, I know that Cody is fighting Brian Kelleher next month. I think he'll make quite easy work of him. It's a weird matchup, I'm not going to lie. But I think if he does and he takes no damage, this just makes all the sense in the world. It's a rematch, of course, of their UFC 207 title fight bout. I thought they would have rematched already by now. But I think if you think about Cruz, he's definitely probably only got maximum 2 fights in him. It would help his legacy a lot to beat Garbrandt. I know it's not the same Garbrandt, but it's also not the same Cruz. So for that reason, I like it. Like I said in the intro, I feel like this card needs to be built on storylines, and this is a damn good one. I actually think it's a bit closer than people think as well. I think this will be an interesting fight. It probably won't be the most entertaining fight. In terms of the intrigue of the actual situation itself, though, it will definitely sell. I always find the headliner of the prelims of a massive pay-per-view quite hard to predict. You kind of want the correct balance of like star power and a great fight to draw people in. I think this one is perfect. We've not seen Cater for a while. He got injured in his main event with Arnold Allen. We've not seen him since, and Barboza went to war with Sadiq Youssef. But by April, he would have had 6 months after that. I think this is the kind of fight where it will definitely get people off their feet, and that's what you want in this kind of spot on this kind of card. I definitely think that Cater would come in as the favourite, but I don't necessarily think he'd win. I was very surprised not only at the fact that Barboza won, but how he came back at this stage in his career. I think Cater will put the pressure on him, but I could see Barboza chewing his leg, man, I really could. Right lads, we've whizzed through 5 awesome prelims. I'm going to kind of break down in a bit more detail the main card fights, and we're starting off with a good one, the rematch, Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. Listen, if I broke up with Tracy Cortez, I'd also be in a bit of a shit place, but Ortega needs to get back in that cage, man. It's been too long. I mean, I understand the shoulder injury was a little bit more severe than we first thought. Like, at the time, it just looked like dislocated, but it turned out to be a little bit more than that. But, I mean, Yair's had 2 fights and won an interim belt in the time since their first fight, and going into that first fight, I thought Ortega was going to beat him. I always feel like with Ortega, he's very scrappy on the feet, and in a fight with somebody like Yair, you kind of need to close that distance. I think on the feet he would have done okay. I think he would have subbed him later in the fight, but I don't know. With the layoff and the fact it would be a 3-round fight, I probably would go with Yair. I think it's a fight that needs to actually play out properly, though, because if it doesn't, you end up with 2 guys at the top of the division that are both coming off losses, and you kind of need to get rid of one of them to let the division kind of grow. So, yeah, it's also an awesome fight as well, so it's perfect for here on the card. Now, if you watched my video last week where I thought about mains and co-mains for 2024 in the UFC pay-per-views, I actually had this as the co-main 5 rounds in that initial video, but I thought about it, it should be lower down on the card. I still want to see it on it though. Looking at both divisions, there's not a lot for either of them else other than this fight to actually do. I mean, you look at lightweight, he's not going to fight Gamrot. 1, they train together, and 2, he just doesn't bring in the name value. And I think, honestly, at this stage of his career, I do think Poirier needs big names. Fiziv's injured, he's also coming off a loss against Gamrot. He's already lost recently to Oliveira and Gaethje, and he's not going to fight Conor for a 4th time, at least not yet. So a move up to welterweight works in terms of nothing at lightweight, and I think he just needs to. He's a big dude for the division, he really is. And Burns, of course, was very, very busy at the start of the year. He got beat by Bilal Muhammad, which I'm still not over, but it ain't a Bilal hate video. You got Shavkat and Wonderboy fighting. It's a bit early for obviously Ian Gary, his teammate. Luke Hayes not going to fight him either. Usman is probably going to fight Whittaker at middleweight at some point early summer next year. And I think also with Burns, he likes a big name. He fought Masvidal, he fought Chimaev, those kind of fights. I think it just works all round, I'm not going to lie. And there's storyline later in the card, we'll get to that later. Right, the feature bout now. Alright, calm down. I don't want any pitchforks, I don't want any comments about how shit fucking women's MMA is, I know. But you need an undisputed title fight on a card like this. It's the only one on here as well, so it kind of works in a way because I think they're not big names, of course, so you can kind of put them this low down, they won't moan about it, so that's a good thing. And honestly speaking, in terms of a women's MMA title fight, this is probably one of the best ones you can make. The only one I could think that'd be better than this is maybe Zhang Weili moving up, but that won't happen just yet. I think Blanchfield is actually quite marketable. She's young, she knows how to talk on the mic a little bit for women's MMA standards at least. And also, I know their last fight was a draw, but in my opinion, Grasso is starting to feel like the champion. I don't know what it is. I feel like her entire demeanour has changed in the last kind of 6 months, and it's great. Because Valentina's either going to move up or retire for me. So, yeah, we need somebody like Grasso with the belt. I also think that if she were to win, Blanchfield would wear it quite well as well. A lot of people are talking about maybe giving the title shot to Fior, but I think if you look at the two most recent wins they've had, for me, Blanchfield's are more impressive. If she beat Andrade, you have to remember that was the Andrade that just beat Lauren Murphy and pieced her up for 3 rounds solid. So at that point, she had a lot of stock on her. And she hasn't got as much now, of course, but yeah, she did then. And, I mean, Santos arguably beat Shevchenko. So I think they're better than the wins against Rose and Chookagian for Fior. And also as well, I've already got Ortega and Yair on the card. If you put Alexa on there as well, you're really drawing in the Mexican market, and they love their fighting. So I think you could definitely get some extra buys off of that. So you remember the start of the video, I said there was one fight on this card I probably don't think would happen, but it still potentially could. It was this one, BMF title fight, Holloway versus Gaethje. And the reason why I think it may not happen is Gaethje. I mean, he said many a time now that he wants the Islam fight, and to be honest, if you beat Rafael Fiziev and no one else was touching him, and you start DP, you probably have earned it. He's also entertained a Conor fight, but honestly, I think Oliveira is definitely getting the title shot, probably middle of next year. So Gaethje should be looking at November, December next year, which would be over a year off. I know he takes breaks a lot, but I think we need to get him in there more, man. He's not getting any younger, he's not going to be here for much longer. Have to see him fight, man. And as for Holloway, I mean, what else is there for him at 45? Maybe fight the winner of, like, I don't know, Emmett against Shikedze, and then maybe get smashed up by Volkanovski again? Like, I don't think he really needs that anymore. I think Max is at a point in his career where he should just say, fuck featherweight, move up to lightweight, and actually take the time to move up, and never come back down again, and just see what he can do at lightweight. The reason why I say that is, even if he loses against Gaethje, which, by the way, I think he probably would, there are still so many incredible matchups at 155 for Max Holloway. I mean, think about it. If he fights Justin here and loses, he could have a fight night main event in New Zealand with Dan Hooker if he beats Green, or he could fight Green in a main event, or he could fight maybe a returning Fiziev. There's so many better options at lightweight. I'd much rather see him fight Hooker than, like, I don't know, a Shikedze after he beat Josh Emmett. I think he should move up permanently, man. And again, like I said earlier, it's all about storylines, man. There are so many kind of like former opponents on this card that would just make an incredible press conference. And speaking of which, let's just get on with the main event. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Obviously, it has to be Conor against Chandler. It has to happen in April, but I have a really, really bad feeling it won't. But I'm being positive, you lot, okay? It's going to happen on this card. It's going to be a sick card. And Conor is not going to punch any more granddads and get sued, alright? Does it feel a little bit cheating having these two in the main event when they both have lost against people lower on the card quite recently? Yes, but it's Conor in it. It's going to happen. There's no way it doesn't. In my opinion, this is one of those fights that I go back and forwards on what I think the outcome will be pretty much every day. One day I wake up and I think, yeah, Chandler's open as fuck. I think that Conor is going to catch him. And other days I think, you know, Chandler could catch him as well, or he could double leg the shit out of him for a couple of rounds and sub him. Anything could happen here. They're both unpredictable. Honestly, the timing of this card is perfect for Conor to come back in, starch Chandler, and somehow nick himself a title shot from nowhere, because you know that if he makes light work of Chandler, they'll push for that. They just will. Honestly, one of my favourite things about this fight is the payday that Chandler's going to get. Now, I'm one of these people, and I'll say it openly, I think he's a bit cringe. I'm not a huge Michael Chandler fan, but if you look at all the blood, sweat and tears he's putting in Bellator, he's going to get paid for this, and in all honesty, for his career, he deserves it. I just have to mention this again. Imagine the press conference here, man. You got Conor and Dustin going backwards and forwards. You got Gaethje and Chandler going backwards and forwards. You got Poirier and Chandler going backwards and forwards. Cruz and Garbrandt are going to be sat there throwing barbs like children. And Bo Nickel, I don't know what he'll do. Just get out his NCAA medals and start waffling on about them. And then Tuivasa in the back with the bucket hat on, just there for the vibes. I mean, it'll be the best press conference of all time. Regardless if the fight's a shit. You just watch for that, don't you? Honestly, I think I've wasted just about enough of your time. I hope you enjoyed the card builder. Let me know what you think down below. Any changes you'd make as well, let me know down below. Even the haters, I love you lot as well. So yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.